Hey, and welcome to another Tech Tuesday. This is Chad from Ascension Worship, and this week it must be Meowie Catsmiths because we have a free template for the Behringer WING.
Hey, what do you say? Yes, it's that time again. It's Tech Tuesday.
So this week I've got my festive cat Christmas sweater on, and I decided that today would be Meowie Catsmiths because we have been seeing a huge influx of churches that are getting the Behringer WING. And why not? There are new models and new colors coming out, and it's more powerful than ever. It's super affordable. It's a great console for your church. However, if it's your first digital mixer or first time using the WING, there are a few things that are a little bit confusing or overly complicated for most churches. So, in the spirit of Meowie Catsmiths, we have decided to give you a free template with some starting preset types, and I'll explain that in a moment, what I mean by that, to get you going. So this is available in the link in the description. It is completely free. We do ask that in exchange for this, that you please go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel. We do this completely for free because we want to help the church, but it does take time, effort, and equipment. And if you can subscribe, that helps us out a little bit with that. So with all that said, here is the scene laid out for you. When you load it, it should set the brightness and the presets, and then it should load you up on user one across all three banks. So that's what we're looking at right here. So I've put on user one on our main bank here. Eventually you'll want to put your channels that you're actually using, but just to start you off, I put our preset types. And let me just go through and explain what's happening. So every channel has already loaded onto it filters. I've turned on the gate, compressor, and the EQ, and I've put them at generic starting points. So you don't have to turn anything on. You can just start adjusting thresholds and EQs and stuff and get going. And I've already set up per channel type different effect sends and different levels going to a starter live stream mix for you as well. So looking here at the first channel, we have drums / acoustic. And so the reason why those two things are put together, these are any band instrument channel that you would want your processing, so your gate, your EQ, your compression, you would want those going to the band's in-ears because it's going to help to give them a better balance of what's going on. So for those channels, if we look at our send type, we are sending pre-fade. So everything up until the fader will go to your band's in-ear mixes on those channels. They're also routed to the band reverb. Nothing's turned up, but they're routed to that so you can get going right away. Next, we have the instrument channels. This is pretty much the same thing. It's already routed to your band reverb and to the live stream, but the tap point is set right after the gate instead of before the fader. So this is going to be great for anything that should sound pretty good as soon as it's plugged in. So typically this is going to be bass guitar, electric guitar, keys, and tracks. Now, if you have someone who doesn't have great gear or doesn't get good tone out of their ears, then you might want to give them the drum and acoustic channel instead. But generally, this is going to be what you want to do so that they're hearing the pure tone going into their in-ears. They're able to adjust what they're hearing to give you the best results because you're sending them the pure tone. So that's your instrument channel. Next, we have ears only. Ears only is going to be for things that only go to the ears or the live stream. So things that you don't want coming out of the house. So these are turned off going to your main mix, but they can go to the live stream if you push the fader up, and then they're set to go to the in-ears, of course. Then we have the vocal channels. This is going to be for anyone who is singing, not speaking, specifically singing. So it's going to be set to a good level for your live stream. And then they already have the ability to put pitch correction on there. I'll show you that in a moment here. And they are being routed to the vocal reverb and delay effects that I have set up, which again, I'll show you in just a moment. Like the drum and acoustic channels, what's going to the in-ears from the vocal channels is everything up until the first insert. So that way the vocalist can hear your gate, EQ, and compression. But if you apply pitch correction, they're not going to hear that. And of course, they won't hear the fader as well. Next, we have speech. Speech is very similar to the vocals, but it is not being routed to any effects. It's being sent post-fade to the band's ears. So if you turn the fader up or down to adjust for pastor talking quietly versus pastor screaming, that will adjust in their ears as well. Also, we already have the auto mix set up on those. So if you have multiple pastors interviewing each other, that will help to kind of give you some control over that a little bit better. And it's being sent to the live stream at a hotter level than what the band and vocal channels are being sent to, which is really, really handy for getting control over your live stream. Then finally, this one's just blank. This is the same setting that I currently have loaded up on all the channels, but if you need to copy and paste blank channels later on, you can do that. Also on this this page, we have some aux channels set up for you. So I have a computer feed and an auxiliary feed for like background music routed using the inputs on the back of the board. This third aux channel is open for anything else you might want to plug in later on. And then I have the oscillator set up for you, which is super handy for testing your different channels. So I've got some videos on that you can check out if you're curious. Looking at our aux page on here, some of the things we just talked about. Then we also have the band verb, vocal verb, and delay returns all set up on here. Then I want to show you this. This is your front of house talkback channel. It's routed to input 8, local input 8 on the back of the board, and that's already set up, ready to go. Looking at your buses. So I currently have 8 stereo in-ear mixes ready to go for you. And then you'll notice that they start on bus 2. Bus 1, if you'll see on here, has a red X on the screen. So there's nothing wrong with it. You can totally use that if you need it. I mean, there's tons of in-ear mixes available on this board, but I never use number 1 if I can help it. The reason why is because sometimes with the in-ear app, if someone's phone glitches out, it might reset them to bus 1, which is usually where I put my drummer. However, I've had instances in the past where one of the vocalists accidentally ends up on that because it's bus 1, and next thing you know, they're messing up the drummer's in-ear mix, which is no bueno. So we are just skipping that for now. You can go back and use that later on if you want, but everything starts on bus 2. Looking over on the next set of buses, we have a dubba mix, which is really cool. I've talked about this in some previous videos, but I don't think I've ever explained it on the wing. A dubba bus, what it does is it takes whatever you send to it, it's a subgroup, and it flips whatever side it's on, it delays it a little bit, and then it takes off some of the high end. And what that does is it creates a false sense of stereo. This is really cool if maybe some weeks you have 1 electric guitarist, some weeks you have 2 electric guitarists, and on the weeks when you have 1 electric guitarist, you want to fill in a little bit more, or even when you have 2 electric guitars, it'll fill in a little bit more. So what you would do is pan one of your guitars, for example, maybe hard left if that's where they're standing on stage, send them to the dubba bus, and what will happen is then it will put an opposite mix of that guitar in there and create this false sense of stereo, but you still localize it to hearing it from the side where the where the guitarist is standing. Really cool. If you don't understand what I just said, don't use it, but it's there if you want. You can watch some other videos to learn more about that. Stream mix, as I mentioned before, we are sending a post-fade mix with different levels for your instruments, your speaking microphones, your effects. Everything's already put in a starting position on that should be good to get you going. We also loaded on the master bus control on here. This is really going to be great to give you a more polished, mastered sound on your live stream. and it'll basically boost your signal, but then also create a limiter so it doesn't distort online. So you give maximum volume with hopefully no distortion. So again, you can watch my other videos to see more about that, but that's already loaded on there for you and ready to go. All right, so that's all what we have on bus 1, or sorry, fader bank 1. Over here in your center bank of faders, again, on user 1, I've got DCAs already set up for you for drums, electric guitars, keys, tracks, your entire band, so all the instrument channels, your vocals, so all your singing channels, and then the Vox verb return and the delay send, which is really cool for giving you a lot of control over how your vocal effects work. Speaking of which, on user 2, you have your effects sends and returns. The way I have them routed is a little bit weird. You can watch some of my other videos to see why. You don't have to know where they are because I put them all here for you ready to go. Speaking of which, moving on to your user assignable section. I have already put controls for effects up here. So these 3 knobs for band verb, vocal verb, and delay, and they're labeled on here. Hopefully you can see that on the screen. These just control these faders. So you don't have to be on this page to have that control on there, which is super handy. These buttons down here, again, correlate with the labels. Will give you sends on fader. So your band verb, vocal verb, delay. The next row will put that effect on the screen so that you can see and adjust your settings really quickly. And then finally, down here, you have mute groups. If you want to be able to mute those channels real quick without having to be on this page. For your tap tempo, you have a tap tempo for your delay, your stereo delay. And then this is kind of cool. There's a fader to unity button. So if you're like me and you want to be a little bit OCD and put faders exactly at unity for like your DCAs and your in-ear mixes, that kind of thing, if you hold this button down and hit select, it will put your faders exactly at unity, which can be handy. Up here in the assignable section at the top, these knobs aren't doing anything, but the buttons are. You've got a solo for your stream mix, which is handy. And then if you're using the SD cards, which I already have everything routed on those as well, we have a record, a stop, and a marker button. So all very, very handy, useful things. This user section over here on the far bottom right, currently I have your 3 aux channels and your main bus on here. What I would suggest you do once you get everything assigned is to keep your aux channels, whichever ones you're using, and then put like your pastor's microphone over here so you can get to it right away. These are great for transitionary channels so that way you can be looking at one thing over here and always have your pastor's mic ready to go over here. Super handy. All right, looking at our effects page. As I mentioned earlier, we have a band verb, a vocal verb, and a delay, all with some good starting settings for you. Here's the delay for your double bus. And then I've preloaded. These are not assigned because you need to set your channels first, but I've set up 4 of the pitch fix plugin and 7 of the de-essers, which those are the plugins that I use the most. So I just put those on there. And of course, your live stream mastering channel. I've done basic routing to get you going for like the SD cards, USB, and your USB recorder. That's all kind of set up and ready to go for you. Obviously, some of that's going to depend on your particular setup. So let's talk about that. Real easy. The reason why I didn't use actual presets, I'm using preset groups and I put them on channels, is because this is going to be really easy to just copy the entire scene. You don't have to mess with any kind of preset libraries or anything. So when it's time to set up your channels on here, it's really easy. In this case, I'm going to select drums and acoustic. And let's say that the first 7 channels of my mixer layout are going to be drum channels. All I'm going to do is, with drums and acoustic selected, I'm going to hit utility. And I'm going to copy, select all 7 of those channels, and then hit copy. And if I go and look at that now, there we go. You can see all 7 channels have drum and acoustic on there. So obviously we'll change the name to whatever you have plugged in, set up your input channel, and you're ready to start going. Then if, let's say, the next 3 channels were bass guitar and 2 electric guitars. Simple. I'm going to select Instruments, Utility, and then select 8, 9, and 10. Copy, and then that's done. You just go down the list and then get everything in there, and then you're ready to go. All right, so I hope that's helpful to someone out there. Again, please help us out by liking and subscribing to this channel and this video. That'll be really, really helpful for us. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And until next time, have a great week. Meowie Catsmiths! Again, this is Chad from Ascension Worship. I hope this has been helpful for you and your team. Come back here every Tuesday for new information.